America was crazy for concept cars in the 1950s. There were fins, bubble canopies, turbine engines, wild space age shapes, and acres of chrome, and that's just from General Motors. But on the other side of the Atlantic, the Italians were putting out futuristic concepts as well, and some independent coach builders put American platforms under their rolling sculptures. Some of these coach builders even got a contract out of it. This Italian American exchange produced some of the most interesting and prettiest cars of the decade, including the numerous Ghia-bodied Chrysler specials. More obscure but no less striking is the Lincoln Indianapolis by Boano. There's only one of them, and it's for sale. It will cross the block at Sotheby's Monterey auction. During the first half of the 1950s, Ghia had a very fruitful relationship with Chrysler. Central to that success was Felice Mario Boano, who ran Ghia before setting off on his own to set up Carrozzeria Boano with his son Gianpaolo in 1954. It was only natural then to want to chase more American dollars and entice one of the big three again. Legend has it that Gianpaolo had a friend who worked at Ford who offered to serve as a go-between. If, of course, Bono could make an exciting enough car, this is what they came up with. Using a stock Lincoln chassis, the younger Bono rushed to get a working prototype ready in time for the 1955 Turin International Automobile Show. The four vertical headlights and subtle air opening under the front bumper instead of a traditional grille are certainly striking if you look at the car straight on, but the fenders are especially outrageous. In front of each door are three chrome exhaust outlets, and behind each one is a large vertical air intake. Both the exhaust and the intake scoops are purely for show, however. The 50s were all about excess after all. The true exhaust exits beneath each taillight. Despite its Italian clothes, the Boanos gave the car an American as apple pie kind of name, Indianapolis. Massive Indianapolis script flows back on each front fender following a large checkered flag. The checkered flag theme continues on the inside with black and white upholstery, and on the dash is another neat touch. There is a center panel that seamlessly covers all the instruments and controls but can be opened to reveal the gauges, switchgear, and radio. The two-tier center console between the bucket seats is oddly cool, too. The Indianapolis finished in time for the Torn Show, and unsurprisingly, it was a hit. Auto Age even put it on the cover of its November 1955 issue with the caption, "Is this the next Lincoln?" As it turns out, the answer was no, it wasn't. Ford offered Bono a contract, but Bono leveraged that offer to get a job running Fiat's in-house styling department instead. As for the Indianapolis itself, it went straight to Ford at the insistence of Henry Ford, II. There are rumors that Ford gave the car to actor Errol Flynn, but they've never proven to be anything more than that rumors. But what did happen is that the car was damaged at some point while in Boston and remained in New England unrestored and largely forgotten for many years. The car's long-term owner eventually had it restored to better than new condition in the late 1990s, early 2000s, with originally non-functional gauges and power steering put in working order. Its Concours debut was in 2001 at Pebble Beach, and it won its class. Other Concours sightings included Amelia Island in Greenwich, as well as another award-winning Pebble Beach appearance in 2013. So how much is this totally unique, totally gorgeous coach-built Lincoln worth? Well, that question isn't as hard to answer as it sounds. The Indianapolis doesn't carry a pre-sale estimate heading into the RM sale at Monterey, but we've seen it change hands before, and the prices have remained remarkably consistent. And it sold for $1.375M at Gooding's Pebble Beach sale in 2006. Hammered not sold at a $1.55M high bid at RM's Art of the Automobile sale in New York in 2013, and then sold for $1.21M at RM's Andrews Collection sale in Fort Worth 4 years ago. So it's safe to call this a low to mid $1M car. We'll find out in Monterey. In 1955, Gianpaolo Boano was in his early 20s, but he had already been designing cars alongside his father, Felice Mario Boano, for several years, first at Ghia and then later at their own Carrozzeria Boano Torino. A friend of the young Boano, Cuccio, had worked with Ford Motor Company and suggested that Carrozzeria Boano Torino produce a car on a Lincoln chassis for Turin. The pedestal on which the sculpture would be built was a stock 1955 Lincoln. Dubbed the Indianapolis, it would become the hottest of hot rod Lincolns. Gianpaolo Buono's futurist design was based upon the idea of an aircraft with a rounded center section that tapered at each end between pontoon-like outer wings, decorative side exhaust, and cooling intakes, and a glassy canopy that recalled streamlined Le Mans racing cars of the 1930s. A traditional grille was removed and replaced by an air opening under the front bumper, which was the largest piece of chrome on the car. Four headlamps stood upright in chromed oval surrounds, while the taillights settled in nearly identical nacelle above jutting chromed exhaust tips. The interior was designed for two, wrapped in fine leather with a step console that divided the bucket seats with their black and white two-tone pattern. The driver and passenger faced a fascia that seemed to sweep around the entire interior of the car, with a black insert framed by panels of orange bearing in proud block letters Indianapolis only when necessary was the center panel opened, revealing a complete bank of instruments. When shown at Turin, the Indianapolis achieved the recognition that Boano had sought, including a cover feature in the November 1955 issue of Auto Age magazine asking, "Is this the next Lincoln?" Following the close of the Turin show, the Indianapolis was purchased by Ford, reportedly at the behest of Henry Ford II, and it was shipped to the United States. The Indianapolis was reportedly later shown in Boston, where it sustained damage to the interior and was later acquired by Felix Duclos of Manchester. Its history thereafter is well known and continues most prominently with Thomas Kerr, the renowned Packard collector and active Classic Car Club of America member. Kerr remains the Indianapolis's longest-term owner, and he was the man responsible for its rebirth. He owned it for 3 decades, and during his ownership, he recognized its importance as a one-off piece of design history. Jim Cox SR and his son, Jim Jr. of Pennsylvania, took on the challenge of restoration. The Coxes spent 2 years restoring the car to an extraordinary show-quality finish. The instruments and power steering, which were originally non-functional, were built to working order. It a powerful overhead valve V8 engine, displacing 341 cubic inches and producing over 200 horsepower, sits under the hood and is mated to a 4-speed automatic transmission and four-wheel drum brakes. With the restoration finally completed, the Indianapolis began a return to the show circuit after nearly 50 years. Forgotten by many, it astonished in its debut at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance in 2001, where it completed the Tour d'Elegance and won top honors in the post-war custom coachwork class. It continued to garner awards at the Amelia Island Concours, the Burn Prevention Foundation Concours, and the Bethlehem Concours, as well as receiving the Most Outstanding Lincoln Award at Greenwich in 2003. After Kerr sold the Indianapolis, it continued to tour East Coast concours and eventually found its way into the esteemed Andrews collection. Under their ownership, it made a grand reappearance at the Pebble Beach concours, again completing the tour and this time winning the Lincoln Trophy. The consignor purchased the car in 2015 from the Andrews collection. In 2016, the Indianapolis was chosen by guest curator Ken Gross to be displayed at the Frisch Art Museum for their Bellissima, the Italian automotive Renaissance 1945 to 1975 display. Under current ownership, the car was serviced and maintained by a Pebble Beach level restoration facility. The Indianapolis is accompanied by a collection of documentation that includes copies of photos of it at Turin programs and photographs from its modern show appearances and copies of the Auto Age and Automobile quarterly issues in which it was prominently featured. A breathtaking one-off design, this exclusive study by Boano remains the hottest of hot rod Lincolns.